Today, I'm going to tell you a story in clear, easy English. We will be working at level B2, intermediate. Turn on the subtitles to see the translation in your own language. The stranger who knew my name. Patty walked quickly through the quiet evening streets, pulling her coat tighter as the wind pushed against her. She had stayed late at work again, trying to finish a report that never seemed to end. Downtown was almost empty now, the shops dark and the buses running less often. She liked this peaceful time of day, until something unusual broke the silence. At the corner of Maple and Fifth, she saw a man standing under a streetlight. He looked completely ordinary, mid-40s, short brown hair, simple jacket, but as she approached, he lifted his head and said something that made her freeze. "Good evening, Patty," he said calmly, as if he had known her for years. Her first reaction was confusion, followed by a sharp wave of fear. She didn't recognize him at all, and she certainly hadn't told him her name. She forced a smile and stepped back slowly, hoping he had simply made a mistake, but his next words made her heart race even faster. "Don't be afraid," the stranger said, taking a small step forward. "You don't know me yet, but I've been looking for you for a long time." Patty's breath caught in her throat and she shook her head. "I don't know who you are. Please stay back," she warned. The man didn't move any closer. Instead, he raised his hands to show he meant no harm. "My name is Roger," he said, "and I need your help. Something important is coming." Patty almost laughed. This sounded like something from a dramatic movie. "I'm sorry, Roger," she said firmly. "I don't help strangers who appear out of nowhere and know my name." She turned to walk away, but his voice stopped her again. "If you don't listen, Patty, someone you care about will be in danger." She turned back sharply. Her mind jumped instantly to her family, her friends, her coworkers. It felt like he had reached into her thoughts and turned them inside out. "What are you talking about?" she demanded, trying to keep her voice steady. Roger looked genuinely troubled, as if he didn't want to frighten her. "I can't explain everything yet," he said carefully, "but I know what's going to happen tomorrow. I've seen it." Patty narrowed her eyes. "You've seen it. What does that mean?" "It means exactly what you think," he answered quietly. "I've been having visions, clear ones. They're not dreams." He took a slow breath before continuing, "And in every vision, you're there." Patty stared at him, unsure whether to run or call for help. She was a practical person who believed in logic, not visions or prophecies. But Roger didn't look like someone playing a prank. He looked honestly scared, and something about that unsettled her. "What do you see?" she asked, surprising herself. "I see a fire," Roger replied instantly, as if waiting for the question. "A fire in a place that should be safe, and you standing near someone trapped inside." Patty felt her stomach tighten. "Where?" she asked quietly, hoping he wouldn't say the place she feared. Roger hesitated before answering. "In your office building, on the 3rd floor." Patty gasped. The 3rd floor was where her best friend Marissa worked. "This is ridiculous," Patty said, shaking her head. "No one can see the future, Roger. You probably read something about me online." But Roger looked hurt. "You think I want this? It terrifies me too." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded photograph. Patty stepped back, unsure what he was doing. "It's safe," he said softly, handing it to her. Her hands trembled slightly as she unfolded the picture. The photograph showed her office building. Smoke poured from the windows and fire crews surrounded the street. But what made her knees weaken was the shape of a woman inside, and even though the picture was blurry, Patty knew it was her. She looked up at Roger, her voice barely more than a whisper. "How did you get this?" "I don't know," he answered. "It appeared in my mailbox 2 days ago." Patty felt a cold weight settle in her chest. "Why me?" she asked, almost pleading. Roger shook his head. "I wish I knew, but every vision leads back to you." Patty closed her eyes for a moment, struggling to think clearly. She didn't want to believe him, but the fear was real now. "What do you expect me to do?" she finally asked. "Tomorrow morning," Roger said. "Don't go inside the building right away. Wait outside for 10 minutes. If nothing happens, you can forget about me." "And if something does happen?" Patty asked. Roger looked at her with a mixture of hope and desperation. "Then you'll save someone's life." The weight of his words pressed heavily on her chest. Her mind raced with doubt, fear, and a strange curiosity. She wanted to walk away and pretend none of this had happened. But what if he was right? What if ignoring him meant someone she loved would get hurt? Patty took a deep breath, feeling trapped by her own conscience. "Fine," she said finally. "I'll wait outside tomorrow. But if nothing happens, you disappear, understand?" Roger nodded immediately. "You have my word." Patty walked home with shaky steps, replaying the entire conversation in her mind. Part of her wanted to tell someone, but she knew how crazy it would sound, so she kept the strange meeting to herself. She barely slept that night. Morning arrived too soon, pale sunlight spilling across her bedroom. Patty dressed for work slowly, her heart pounding the entire time. She reached her office building earlier than usual, her hands cold with nerves. She stayed outside, checking her watch every few seconds. 5 minutes passed. Nothing happened. People walked by, coffee in hand, heading inside with no idea what she feared. Patty felt increasingly foolish standing there. At 9 minutes, she sighed and shook her head. "This is stupid," she muttered. She stepped toward the entrance, ready to put the whole experience behind her. Then she heard the explosion. A blast of heat and smoke burst from the side of the building. People screamed and ran out in panic. Patty stumbled backward, shocked and terrified. Roger's words hit her like a hammer. "You will save someone." Without thinking, Patty rushed toward the building. Firefighters hadn't arrived yet, and smoke was pouring through the doorway. She covered her mouth with her sleeve and pushed inside. Her fear was overwhelming, but something stronger pushed her forward. The hallway was hot and dark. She shouted Marissa's name, listening desperately for an answer. A faint cough came from the left. Patty ran toward the sound. She found Marissa half-conscious on the floor, trapped under a fallen light fixture. "Patty?" Marissa whispered weakly. "I'm here," Patty said, voice trembling. She dragged the fixture off and pulled Marissa to her feet. Together they struggled toward the exit. The smoke burned Patty's throat and eyes. Her legs felt heavy, like they were moving through mud, but she refused to stop. They burst out into the open air just as firefighters arrived. Paramedics rushed to help Marissa, who clung to Patty's arm. "You saved me," Marissa whispered. Patty could hardly breathe, shaken by the reality of what had happened. She looked around frantically for Roger. For a moment, she thought he might be gone. Then she saw him standing across the street, watching quietly. Their eyes met, and he nodded once. Patty walked over to him, anger and gratitude fighting inside her. You were right, she said. How did you know? Roger sighed. The visions, they're getting stronger. And now that you believe me, he paused, his face tense. There's more coming. Patty felt a chill go down her spine. She wanted to run from whatever he meant, but she also knew she couldn't ignore him now, not after today. What do you need from me? She asked quietly. Roger looked relieved and afraid. I don't know exactly, he admitted, but you and I, we're connected somehow, and this was only the beginning. Patty stared at him, her heart beating hard. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring. She didn't know why she was part of Roger's visions, but one thing was suddenly clear. Her life had changed forever the moment the stranger spoke her name.
If you enjoyed this story, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell. Until next time, take care and learn something new every day.